The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the Riverside County Courthouse, casting harsh shadows across the wooden benches. 17-year-old Marcus Thompson sat beside his public defender, a tired-looking woman named Ms. Patricia Coleman, who'd barely spoken 10 words to him since they met 20 minutes ago. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of the table. Marcus had never imagined he'd end up here. 3 months ago, he was a straight-A student at Lincoln High, captain of the debate team, with acceptance letters from 4 universities sitting on his desk at home. Now he wore an orange jumpsuit and ankle shackles that clinked every time he shifted his weight. The charge, armed robbery. Except Marcus had never robbed anyone in his life. Judge Harold Brennan entered the courtroom, his black robes flowing behind him like something from a dark fairy tale. He was a man in his mid-60s with silver hair, sharp blue eyes, and a reputation that preceded him. People whispered that Brennan was tough on crime and didn't tolerate excuses. Marcus had learned quickly that this translated to harsh sentences, especially for young men who looked like him. Ms. Coleman leaned over and whispered without making eye contact. "The prosecutor's offering a plea deal, 7 years with possibility of parole in 5. I strongly suggest you take it." Marcus's stomach dropped. "But I didn't do anything. I told you I was at the library studying for finals. There are cameras, there are witnesses." She sighed, shuffling her papers with practiced indifference. "The victim identified you in a lineup. Your fingerprints were on the scene. Fighting this will only make it worse." "My fingerprints are there because I work at that convenience store on weekends," Marcus said, his voice rising despite his efforts to stay calm. "Mr. Jameson knows me. I've been working there for 2 years. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Brennan settled into his seat and surveyed the courtroom with the cold efficiency of someone who'd done this thousands of times before. When his gaze landed on Marcus, something flickered across his face. Not sympathy, not curiosity. Something else entirely. Something that made Marcus's blood run cold. Judge Brennan flipped through the case file with deliberate slowness, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. Marcus watched every movement, searching for any sign of fairness, any indication that the truth might matter here. "Marcus James Thompson," the judge began, his voice echoing through the courtroom. "You stand accused of armed robbery of the Quick Stop convenience store on Elm Street, resulting in injuries to the store owner, proprietor Daniel Jameson, and theft of approximately $800 from the register." Marcus wanted to scream. Mr. Jameson hadn't been injured during any robbery. He'd slipped on a wet floor 2 days after the actual crime and broken his wrist. The prosecutor had cleverly worded it to make it sound connected. The prosecutor, a sharp-featured man named Richard Stokes, stood up. "Your Honor, the state has substantial evidence. The defendant's fingerprints at the scene, a positive identification from Mr. Jameson, and the defendant's known financial difficulties due to his family's recent eviction." That last part stung. Yes, Marcus's mother had lost their apartment after losing her job, but they'd found a small place across town. Marcus had picked up extra shifts at the Quick Stop to help with expenses. He'd been proud of that, proud of helping his mom and younger sister, Keisha. "Ms. Coleman, does your client wish to enter a plea?" Judge Brennan asked. Ms. Coleman stood reluctantly. "Your Honor, my client maintains his innocence, but—" "Not guilty," Marcus interrupted, rising to his feet. The shackles rattled. "I didn't do this." Judge Brennan's eyes narrowed. "Young man, I suggest you let your attorney speak." "But she won't say what needs to be said," Marcus continued, his voice steadier now. "I work at that store. I was there 3 days before the robbery happened. That's why my fingerprints are there. And Mr. Jameson knows me. He knows I would never." "Sit down," Brennan commanded, his voice sharp as a whip crack. Ms. Coleman grabbed Marcus's arm and pulled him back into his seat. She looked mortified. "Your Honor," Stokes said smoothly, The defendant's outburst demonstrates a clear lack of respect for this court and legal process. Brennan nodded slowly. Indeed, Mr. Thompson, I've seen hundreds of young men sit where you're sitting. They all claim innocence. They all have excuses. He leaned forward, his gaze boring into Marcus. But the evidence doesn't lie. Can we at least review the security footage from the library? Marcus pleaded. I was studying there from 6 until closing at 9. The robbery happened at 7:15. Please, just look at the footage. Ms. Coleman whispered urgently, Stop talking, you're making it worse. Judge Brennan removed his glasses and set them on the bench. I've reviewed the evidence submitted by both parties. The library footage you mentioned was examined by the police. It shows someone matching your general description entering the building, but the camera angle makes positive identification impossible. Then how can they positively identify me as the robber? Marcus asked desperately. That's enough, Brennan said coldly. Trial is set for 30 days from today. Bail is denied. Defendant will remain in custody at Riverside Youth Detention Center. He banged his gavel once. Next case. The Riverside Youth Detention Center smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Marcus lay on the thin mattress in his cell, staring at the concrete ceiling, replaying the hearing over and over in his mind. 30 days until trial. 30 days to prove his innocence while locked in a cage. His cellmate, a kid named Devin who'd been caught with his older brother's drugs, had tried to make conversation the first night. Marcus barely responded. How could he explain that his entire future, college, his debate scholarship, his dreams of becoming a lawyer, was crumbling because someone who looked vaguely like him had robbed the very store where he worked? On the third day, Marcus was granted a visitor. His mother, Angela Thompson, sat across from him in the visiting room, her eyes red and swollen. She worked double shifts as a nurse's aide and still couldn't afford a real attorney. Seeing her like this broke something inside him. Baby, I'm so sorry, she whispered, reaching across the table to hold his hands. I'm trying to find money for a better lawyer. I've called everyone I know. Mom, don't, Marcus said, fighting back tears. You can't afford it, we both know that. There has to be something we can do, Angela insisted. You didn't do this. Anyone who knows you didn't do this. But that was the problem. Judge Brennan didn't know him. The prosecutor didn't know him. Even his own lawyer barely seemed to care. A guard approached their table. Time's almost up. Angela squeezed his hands tighter. Marcus, listen to me, your father. Don't, Marcus said sharply. He hadn't seen his father in 8 years. The man had walked out when Keisha was 2 years old and never looked back. Sent a birthday card twice, called maybe 4 times. Marcus had stopped thinking of him as a father years ago. He needs to know what's happening, Angela said softly. He has resources, he could help. He made his choice when he left, Marcus replied bitterly. We don't need him now. The next 2 weeks crawled by like years. Ms. Coleman visited once, spent 15 minutes telling Marcus that fighting the charges was pointless and left. Marcus requested the library footage himself, but was told it required attorney authorization. He wrote letters to Mr. Jameson at the Quick Stop, begging him to remember Marcus's work schedule to verify his character. No response came. Then on day 19, something shifted. Marcus was in the common area when a new detention officer, a middle-aged black woman named Officer Williams, approached him during her rounds. She'd been watching him for several days, he'd noticed. You're the Thompson kid, she said quietly. The robbery case. Marcus nodded warily. My nephew goes to Lincoln High, she continued, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Says you're on the debate team. Says you're one of the smartest kids in school. Hope flickered in Marcus's chest. Yes, ma'am, I was. Officer Williams leaned closer. I've worked here 11 years. I can tell the difference between kids who belong here and kids who don't. She paused. Something about your case doesn't sit right with me. Judge Brennan denied bail for a first-time offender with your record. That's unusual. What are you saying? Marcus asked carefully. I'm saying Brennan has a pattern, she whispered, and someone should look into it. Officer Williams slipped Marcus a folded piece of paper during dinner that evening. When he opened it later in his cell, he found a name and phone number. Detective Lauren Hayes, Internal Affairs Division. Below it, a short message. She's one of the good ones. She'll listen. But Marcus couldn't make that call. Not without evidence. Not without something more than his word against a judge's reputation. The breakthrough came on day 23, during a conversation Marcus never expected to have. Devin, his cellmate, had been transferred out that morning. In his place came a stocky white kid named Tyler Bennett, 18 years old, with nervous energy and darting eyes. Unlike Devin's comfortable silence, Tyler talked constantly about his case, his family, his terrible luck. My third time in front of Brennan, Tyler said that first night, sitting on his bunk. That judge has it out for me, I swear. Marcus rolled over to face him. Judge Brennan. Yeah, first time I got caught shoplifting when I was 15. Brennan gave me 6 months when the prosecutor recommended community service. My lawyer said it was excessive, but what could we do? Tyler shook his head. Second time I missed a court date. My mom was in the hospital, I swear I forgot, and Brennan added another year to my probation. What about this time? Marcus asked. Possession, small amount, first drug offense technically. Everyone said I'd get rehab and probation. Brennan gave me 18 months. Tyler's voice cracked. My public defender said he's seen Brennan do this before, especially with kids from the South Side, especially kids who can't afford fancy lawyers. Marcus sat up slowly. Does he target anyone specifically? Tyler shrugged. Feels like anyone without money or connections, but he hesitated. I heard someone say once that he's harder on Black and Latino kids, way harder, but nobody talks about it out loud, you know. Marcus's mind raced. A pattern. Officer Williams had said there was a pattern. The next morning, Marcus requested to use the phone. He had one name he could call who might actually care. His debate coach, Mr. Robert Chen. No, he couldn't use that name. His debate coach, Mr. Robert Harrison. The man had been like a father to him, more than his real father ever was. But when Marcus called Lincoln High, he learned Mr. Harrison was on medical leave. Instead, he got the vice principal, Mrs. Ellen Rodriguez. Marcus, she said, surprised. Sweetheart, we heard what happened. The whole school is shocked. Mrs. Rodriguez, I need help, Marcus said urgently. His time was limited. I need someone to look into Judge Brennan's sentencing history. There's a pattern of unfair sentences, especially for kids who look like me, kids without money. If I could prove bias. Marcus, that's a serious accusation, she said carefully. I know, but I'm innocent and I'm running out of time. My trial is in 1 week. Please, can you contact the ACLU, a civil rights organization, anyone? There was a long pause. Let me make some calls. That afternoon, Officer Williams found Marcus in the common area. Did you reach out to Detective Hayes? Not yet, but I'm gathering information first, Marcus explained, then told her about Tyler's story. Officer Williams's expression darkened. There are 3 other kids here right now with similar stories, all Brennan cases, all excessive sentences. She glanced around. I could lose my job for this, but I'm going to give you names, talk to them, document everything. If there's a pattern, someone needs to expose it. Over the next 3 days, Marcus became an investigator in his own case. He spoke with 5 different kids who'd appeared before Judge Brennan. 4 were Black or Latino. All had received sentences far exceeding what prosecutors recommended. All had public defenders who seemed defeated before they even started. One kid, a 16-year-old named Jerome Washington, had been given 2 years for spray painting graffiti on a wall. His friend, who was white and whose father was a dentist, got community service for the exact same crime from a different judge. Marcus documented everything in a notebook Officer Williams provided: names, dates, offenses, sentences, circumstances. On day 28, 2 days before his trial, Marcus was escorted to the visiting room again. Marcus expected to see his mother. Instead, sitting at the table in a tailored gray suit was a woman he'd never met before. She was in her 40s, black, with sharp, intelligent eyes and an air of authority that filled the room. "Marcus Thompson," she said, standing and extending her hand. "I'm attorney Jennifer Price. Mrs. Rodriguez contacted the Legal Defense Coalition, and we've been reviewing your case." Marcus shook her hand, hardly daring to hope. "You're here to help me." "I'm here to investigate," she corrected, sitting back down. "I've spent the past 2 days looking into Judge Harold Brennan's sentencing patterns. What I've found is deeply troubling." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Over the past 8 years, Judge Brennan has presided over 214 cases involving minors. Of those, 63% resulted in sentences that exceeded prosecutorial recommendations. Marcus leaned forward. "That's what I've been finding too, the kids here." "I know," Jennifer interrupted. "Officer Williams contacted me yesterday. She's been documenting irregularities for months but didn't know who to trust with the information." She pulled out a chart. "When we break down the data by race and socioeconomic status, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Black and Latino defendants with public defenders receive sentences averaging 42% longer than white defendants with private attorneys for comparable offenses." "So it's real," Marcus breathed. "It's not just in my head." "It's absolutely real, and it's illegal." Jennifer's expression hardened. "What Judge Brennan is doing violates your constitutional rights to equal protection under the law. The problem is proving intentional bias versus unconscious bias, and doing it fast enough to help you." "My trial starts in 2 days," Marcus said desperately. "I know, which is why we're filing an emergency motion this afternoon to recuse Judge Brennan from your case based on a pattern of discriminatory sentencing. We're also demanding a full investigation into his judicial conduct." She paused. "But Marcus, I need you to understand, this is a long shot. Judges protect each other. The system resists this kind of challenge." Marcus felt his hope wavering. "So what do I do?" "We fight, and we pray we get a fair hearing on the motion." Jennifer pulled out another document. "Now tell me everything about the night of the robbery, every detail." For the next hour, Marcus recounted his timeline. He'd finished his shift at the quick stop at 5:30, went home, ate dinner with his mom and sister, left for the library at 6:15, studied until 9 when the library closed. The robbery happened at 7:15, and the library was 12 minutes away by car, 25 by bus. He'd taken the bus. "The library footage," Marcus said. "My lawyer said it was reviewed but couldn't confirm it was me, but it had to be me. I was there. I checked out 3 books on constitutional law. There's a record." Jennifer made notes rapidly. "We'll subpoena those records. We'll also get testimony from the librarian on duty, and I want to talk to Mr. Jameson personally." She looked up. "Marcus, did the police ever show you the footage of the actual robbery from the quick stop?" Marcus shook his head. "No, Ms. Coleman said it was grainy, showed someone in a hoodie." "A hoodie you own?" "A hoodie that half the kids at my school own. It's our debate team jacket, navy blue with yellow lettering. We sold over 200 of them as a fundraiser." Jennifer's eyes lit up. "That's important, very important." She checked her watch. "I have to go file these motions. Marcus, I can't promise anything, but I can promise I'll fight for you like you're my own son." After she left, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in weeks: real hope. That evening, Officer Williams approached his cell with an unusual expression. "You have a phone call. It's marked urgent." Marcus followed her to the phone bank, confused. He picked up the receiver. "Hello." "Marcus." The voice was deep, familiar in a distant way, and filled with an emotion Marcus couldn't quite place. "Son, it's your father." Marcus's hand tightened on the phone. 8 years of silence and now this. "I know you don't want to hear from me," the voice continued. "Your mother called me 3 weeks ago, told me what was happening. I've been working behind the scenes, making calls, trying to help without interfering. But I just heard about Judge Brennan and the motion being filed, and Marcus," his father's voice cracked. "I need you to know something. I need you to know who I am now, what I can do to help you." "I don't need anything from you," Marcus said coldly, though his heart was pounding. "Marcus, please just listen," his father said. "My name is James Thompson. I'm the United States Attorney General." The phone nearly slipped from Marcus's hand. "What?" "I left when you were 9 because I was in witness protection," James continued rapidly. "I was a federal prosecutor who testified against a cartel operation. They threatened you, your mother, your sister. Leaving was the only way to keep you safe. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell anyone." His voice broke. "I've hated myself every day for it, but I thought you being angry at me was better than you being dead." Marcus's mind reeled. The Attorney General. His father was the Attorney General of the United States. "When your mother told me about the charges, I had the FBI quietly investigate. Marcus, you were framed. The actual robber is a 22-year-old named Cole Richards. He targeted the Quick Stop specifically because he knew you worked there, knew your prints would already be on file there. He wore a hoodie matching your debate team jacket. He's approximately your height and build." "Why?" Marcus whispered. "Why would he do that?" "Because he's Judge Brennan's nephew." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Brennan's been covering for Cole for years," James explained. "Minor crimes, sealed records, cases that mysteriously disappear. But Cole's drug habit got worse and he needed money. When he robbed the Quick Stop and the owner got a partial look at him, Cole panicked. He told his uncle and Brennan helped orchestrate the frame. They found you, a black kid who worked there, whose family had financial problems, who'd make a believable suspect." Marcus slid down the wall, his legs giving out. "Mr. Jameson identified me in the lineup. Brennan pressured him, told him you'd threatened him before, fed him false information. Mr. Jameson has been sick about it. He contacted the FBI 2 days ago after his conscience got to him. He's prepared to testify that Brennan coached his identification." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Marcus demanded, anger rising through his shock. "Why did you let me sit here for almost 30 days? "Because building a federal case against a sitting judge takes time and ironclad evidence. If we moved too fast, Brennan would destroy evidence and Cole would disappear. We needed to catch them both." James paused. "The FBI has been monitoring Brennan's communications. Yesterday, they recorded a phone call between Brennan and Cole discussing how to handle your trial. Cole said he was worried. Brennan told him not to worry, that he'd make sure you went away for a long time." Marcus felt sick. "So what happens now?" "Tomorrow morning, before your trial begins, federal marshals will arrest Judge Harold Brennan on charges of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, judicial corruption, and violating your civil rights. Cole Richards will be arrested simultaneously for armed robbery and conspiracy. The U.S. Attorney's Office, my office, is taking over prosecution of both cases. And my case. All charges against you will be dropped immediately. You'll be released tomorrow." James's voice softened. "Marcus, I know I can never make up for the years I lost with you. I know you have every right to hate me. But I need you to know that the moment I heard what was happening, I moved heaven and earth to fix it. Not because I'm the Attorney General, because I'm your father and I failed you once. I won't fail you again." Marcus closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. Relief, anger, confusion, and something else, something that felt dangerously like forgiveness, warred inside him. "I don't know what to say to you," Marcus admitted. "You don't have to say anything right now," James replied gently. "Just know that tomorrow this nightmare ends, and if you'll let me, I'd like to be there when you walk out of that facility. Your mother and sister too. We'll be waiting for you." After the call ended, Marcus sat on the floor of the phone area until Officer Williams gently touched his shoulder. "You okay, son?" "My father," Marcus said, looking up at her. "He's the Attorney General, and Judge Brennan framed me to protect his nephew." Officer Williams's eyes widened. "Lord have mercy." "It's over," Marcus said, still not quite believing it. "Tomorrow it's all over." That night Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. His father's abandonment that wasn't really abandonment. Judge Brennan's corruption. The system that had nearly destroyed his life. The people like Officer Williams and Attorney Jennifer Price who'd believed in him when they had no reason to. The morning sun had barely risen when Marcus heard unusual activity outside his cell. Multiple voices, footsteps echoing through the detention center's corridors, and an energy that felt different from the usual monotonous routine. Officer Williams appeared at his cell door, her face lit up with a smile Marcus had never seen before. "Get up and get dressed in your street clothes, Marcus. You're going home." Marcus's hands shook as he changed out of the detention center uniform for the first time in 30 days. The jeans and shirt his mother had brought felt foreign on his body, like he'd forgotten what normal clothes felt like. As Officer Williams escorted him through the facility, other guards and even some of the kids watched with curious expressions. News traveled fast in places like this. "Marcus," Tyler called from behind the common area fence. "I heard what happened, man. I heard about the judge. You did it, you exposed him." Marcus paused, looking back at the kids still trapped inside. Jerome, who'd gotten 2 years for graffiti. Devin, who'd been caught with his brother's drugs. Tyler himself. "What about them?" Marcus asked Officer Williams quietly. "What about all the other kids Brennan sentenced unfairly?" "The Attorney General's office is reviewing every case Brennan presided over in the last 10 years, Officer Williams said. "Every single one. Those kids will get new hearings with fair judges. Some will have their sentences reduced. Some will be released." She squeezed his shoulder. "You didn't just save yourself, Marcus. You saved all of them." The processing area was crowded with people Marcus didn't expect. Attorney Jennifer Price stood near the door, looking triumphant. His mother waited just beyond the security checkpoint, tears already streaming down her face. His 12-year-old sister Keisha bounced on her toes excitedly. And standing slightly apart from them, looking older than Marcus remembered but unmistakably familiar, was his father. James Thompson wore a dark suit and an expression of profound regret mixed with hope. He didn't approach, didn't presume. He simply waited, letting Marcus decide. The facility director, a stern man named Mr. Paul Hendricks, personally handed Marcus his belongings. "Mr. Thompson, on behalf of this facility, I want to apologize for what you endured. This should never have happened." Marcus just nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. When the final door opened and Marcus stepped into the bright morning sunlight, his mother rushed forward and wrapped him in a hug so tight he could barely breathe. "My baby," she sobbed. "My beautiful, brilliant baby. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault, Mom," Marcus whispered, hugging her back fiercely. "None of this was your fault." Keisha crashed into both of them, her thin arms circling them. "I knew you didn't do it, Marcus. I told everyone at school you didn't do it." For a long moment they stood there, a family reunited, incomplete but healing. Finally Marcus looked up and met his father's eyes. James Thompson took a tentative step forward, his composure cracking. "Marcus." "Thank you," Marcus said quietly, "for believing me, for fighting for me." "I will always fight for you," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "Always, if you'll let me." Marcus didn't know if he was ready to call this man Dad again, but he nodded, and that was enough for now. Attorney Jennifer Price approached the group. "Marcus, I thought you should know what's happening right now. At this very moment, federal marshals are executing arrest warrants." She checked her phone. Judge Harold Brennan was taken into custody 20 minutes ago at his home. Cole Richards was arrested at his apartment shortly after. Both are being transported to federal holding facilities. What will happen to them? Marcus asked. Brennan is facing multiple felony charges: corruption, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, deprivation of rights under color of law. He's looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. He'll also be disbarred permanently. Jennifer's expression hardened. Cole Richards will be charged with armed robbery, conspiracy, and filing a false police report. He's looking at 10 to 12 years. Marcus felt a complex mixture of emotions: relief, vindication, but also sadness that it had come to this, that a judge sworn to uphold justice had destroyed it instead. "There's something else," James said, stepping closer. "The story is breaking nationally right now. Every major news outlet is covering it. Federal judge arrested for framing innocent teen. Attorney General's son nearly imprisoned by corrupt judge. Systemic bias exposed in youth sentencing." This isn't just about you anymore, Marcus. This is going to force a national conversation about judicial accountability and racial bias in the criminal justice system. 3 months later, Marcus stood at a podium in the Lincoln High School auditorium, facing a packed crowd of students, teachers, local officials, and journalists. The debate team championship trophy sat on a table beside him. His team had won regionals the week before, and Marcus had been named captain again. But today wasn't about debate. Today was about truth. "When I was arrested," Marcus began, his voice steady and clear, "I thought the system would protect me. I thought being innocent would be enough. I learned very quickly that innocence isn't always enough when you're young, when you're black, when you don't have money or power or connections." The audience listened in absolute silence. "I spent 30 days in detention for a crime I didn't commit. 30 days watching my future disappear. But I also spent those 30 days meeting other kids like Jerome, who got 2 years for spray painting a wall. Kids like Tyler, who got 18 months for a first-time drug offense that should have resulted in rehab. Kids like Devin, who was guilty by association because he happened to be in a car with his older brother." Marcus paused, looking out at the faces before him. His mother sat in the front row beside his father. They weren't together, maybe they never would be, but they were both there. Keisha sat between them, beaming with pride. Judge Harold Brennan abused his power for years. He targeted vulnerable kids who couldn't fight back. He gave excessive sentences that destroyed lives and families. And he did it because he believed he could get away with it. Marcus's voice grew stronger. But he was wrong. The audience erupted in applause. Marcus waited for silence before continuing. "Last week, Judge Brennan was convicted on all charges. He received a sentence of 18 years in federal prison. His nephew, Cole Richards, received 12 years for the robbery he actually committed, the robbery I was blamed for. More importantly, every single case Brennan presided over is being reviewed. So far, 47 young people have had their sentences reduced or overturned. 12 have been released from detention. This number will grow." More applause, louder this time. "But this isn't just about one corrupt judge," Marcus said. "The investigation revealed systemic problems in how we sentence young offenders, particularly young offenders of color. It revealed how easy it is for bias to infect the justice system, and how hard it is to fight back when you're powerless." Marcus looked directly at the cameras recording his speech. "I was lucky. My father had resources and connections that most people don't have. Most kids in my situation don't have a parent who's the attorney general. They don't get federal investigations and national news coverage. They just disappear into the system and nobody notices." He took a breath. "That's why I'm announcing today that I'm starting a nonprofit organization called the Fair Sentencing Project. We'll provide legal support, investigation resources, and advocacy for young people facing excessive or biased sentencing. We'll document patterns of judicial misconduct. We'll fight for kids who can't fight for themselves." The applause was deafening now. People stood cheering. Attorney Jennifer Price, sitting beside Mrs. Rodriguez, wiped tears from her eyes. Officer Williams, who'd taken a personal day to attend, smiled broadly. After the speech, Marcus was surrounded by well-wishers, journalists, and students from his school. But eventually, the crowd thinned, and Marcus found himself alone with his father on the school's front steps. "I'm proud of you, son," James said quietly, "more proud than I can express." Marcus looked at the man who'd been absent for so many years, the man who'd saved him, the man he was slowly learning to forgive. "I'm not doing this because of what happened to me," Marcus said. "I'm doing it because of all the kids it's still happening to, the ones who don't have someone fighting for them." "I know," James replied. "That's why I'm proud. You could have walked away, focused on your own life, gone to college and put this behind you. Instead, you're turning your pain into purpose." "You taught me that," Marcus said, surprising himself. "When you were a prosecutor testifying against those cartels, you could have stayed silent. You could have protected yourself. But you did what was right, even though it cost you everything, including your family." James's eyes filled with tears. "I'm trying to be better, to be the father you deserved all along." "I know," Marcus said, and for the first time in 8 years, he reached out and hugged his father. 2 weeks later, Marcus received his acceptance packet from Harvard University with a full scholarship. The admissions office had reached out personally after his case made headlines, expressing their support and admiration for his courage. But more meaningful than the scholarship was the letter he received from Jerome Washington, the kid who'd been sentenced to 2 years for graffiti. Jerome's sentence had been reduced to time served plus community service. He was home with his family, enrolled in a local community college, and working toward his own future. "Thank you for not giving up," Jerome had written. "Thank you for fighting not just for yourself but for all of us. You showed me that the system can change when people refuse to accept injustice." Marcus pinned that letter to the bulletin board in his room, right next to his Harvard acceptance. On a warm evening in late spring, Marcus sat on the small porch of his family's apartment with his mother and Keisha. His father visited once a week now, carefully rebuilding relationships that had been fractured by years and circumstances. "What are you thinking about?" Angela asked, watching her son's thoughtful expression. Marcus looked up at the sky, where stars were just beginning to appear. "I'm thinking about how close I came to losing everything. How if just 1 or 2 things had gone differently, if Officer Williams hadn't believed me, if Attorney Price hadn't taken my case, if Dad hadn't been who he is, I'd probably be in prison right now for the next 7 years." "But you're not," Keisha said firmly, leaning against her brother. "You're here, you won." "I won," Marcus agreed, "but I keep thinking about all the kids who don't win, all the kids who are sitting in detention centers right now, innocent or over-sentenced with nobody fighting for them." He looked at his mother. "That's going to be my life's work, Mom. Not just going to Harvard, not just becoming a lawyer, fixing the system that tried to break me." Angela smiled through tears and pulled both her children close. "Then you'll be exactly who you were meant to be." Marcus closed his eyes and felt something he hadn't felt since before his arrest: peace. Not because his ordeal was over, but because he'd found meaning in it. He'd survived injustice and chosen to fight against it. He'd been broken by a corrupt system and decided to spend his life repairing it. Judge Brennan had tried to destroy Marcus Thompson's future. Instead, he'd accidentally created the very person who would help dismantle the system that had protected judges like him for far too long. And in that irony, Marcus found his purpose. The nightmare was over. The real work was just beginning. And Marcus was ready.